I've been using fish as my daily shell for a few years now. It comes with some really nice features such as autocomplete, but I recently realised there's a few things which I've not been using yet. Some things which could be a bit of a game changer. The one we're going to look at today is event handling. There's an entire event system built into fish where you can just write a normal fish function and it will be triggered when a certain event is emitted. These events can be user generated, they can be any event that you could make up, but they also tie into some of the shell's native events. To see how we can subscribe to events in our functions, we can just call the function CLI command with a -h, and this will show us the documentation for creating functions in fish. Down here, we've got -e, or on event, to be more clear, and then an event name, which allows you to run a function when that specifically named event is emitted. You have other ones as well. Quite an interesting one here is on variable. This is when you give a variable name, and when that variable changes, your function can be triggered. That already sounds really quite powerful. You could imagine pinning a function to pwd so that whenever you change directory, there would be your function called automatically. In this help menu, there's not actually anything specifically telling you what those events are though. So we'll go to the fish documentation site and see if we can find what we're looking for. Not the best documentation in the world, but it's also not awful. Here we go, event handlers. We can see that fish already has the following named events, which you can use for the on event switch. You have fish prompt, so that's when the prompt is about to be displayed, and then pre-exec, post-exec, exit. These are the two I'm thinking we're going to use today, pre-exec and post-exec. So just before you run a command and then just afterwards. I'm thinking we'll build something that shows how long a command took, because that could be pretty useful. So back in the terminal, I'm just in my .files repo, so I'm going to go into the place where I keep all of my fish functions. And I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call this hooks.fish, and I'm just going to scaffold out a function. So I'm just going to write a function. I'm going to call this on pre-exec. And it's on a new line to keep it neat. I'll do on event, and then this will be fish pre-exec. And because we're a good citizen of the pond, we're going to put a -d and just give it a description. Run this function when a CLI command is about to be executed. Let's just end that. Let's echo out that this is running. And let's write another function that is the inverse of this. On post exec, giving this an on event of fish post exec with a description runs when the CLI command has finished executing, and we'll just echo done. Okay, so in a new terminal split, I'm just going to source this fish file, which you can see it immediately said done. So now that's because after it had been sourced, we already had the hook in place. So now if I do test, we can see that the pre-exec ran, it said running, then our actual command, and then done has been run. Excellent. Okay, so let's make this a little bit more useful. I want to grab the actual commands that were run. So we'll say command is... I want to grab the actual commands that were run. So I'm going to set a local variable. I'm going to call it command, and it will be the result, and it will be a string of the args that were passed in. I'm going to take a timestamp in seconds. I believe that's the format of seconds. Need to name that as well. Typo there, should be command. We'll call this timestamp. Let's just double check that we've got those correctly at timestamp. Let's just source that, echo it. There we go. So it gave us the timestamp and the actual command, which is correct. I actually don't want to echo it before a command though. I'm more interested in what happens after the fact. I want to know when it started, what the command was, and then at the end I want to record how long that took, and then I can do some interesting things down the line, perhaps. So let's store this now as a global variable. We'll call this fish last command, maybe, and we'll set that to the command. I could probably just set these immediately, but oh well, we've got them separated. We'll say last command time. It's going to like double underscore these, so there's no chance that in the intervening command that anyone's going to go and mutate those or like muck them up or whatever. They're just there. They're going to be picked up in this particular shell. That's what global is. That's this shell, and then they can be picked up in the following function. So they're not going to pollute the entire system. They're just going to be for this shell session. These local variables though, they'll be dropped at the end of this scope, so we do need them as global. Okay, then down in the onExec, we can echo out the, what was the fish command? We can just echo that there. And then we can do something like -E to remove the last command. I don't think we need that. I think it's just like that. Really not liking these underscores. So that -E at the end is just going to remove them. So after this command is gone, they're clean, they're gone, and then when the next command is run, it will go and reset those in the global scope. So we can take another timestamp. We can say locally, we'll call this finish timestamp. It's going to be the result of that date there, and then to get the duration, we'll make a new variable for duration. So set duration, that'll be another local variable, and then in there, I think in fish you've got this like maths special function thing. So we're going to take the finish timestamp, and then we're going to minus it from the it's not called timestamp, it's called fish last command time. Don't know why it keeps dropping that front bit off. That's definitely going to catch me out. So that should be, you take the final timestamp, then you minus it from the original, because these are Unix timestamps, and then that should be the difference between them is how long it actually took. And that's the duration. And then we're just going to echo out that command in that duration. Okay, so let's, oh dear, why did that error? Invalid variable name. Right, so -E, it shouldn't be, it's not expecting it to already have a $. In front. That's what that's saying. Let's clear that, try that again. There we go. Okay, so the source took no time. Echo the test also took no time. Right, okay, so that's because we're asking for a date in just seconds, rather than, we would need milliseconds, because these commands hopefully are not taking seconds, they're just taking a very small fraction of time. So I know on Linux systems you can say, give me 3 decimal places of the nanoseconds. Let's do that there as well. But I am aware that this is something which does not exist in Mac OS X. The date function is a bit different. So hopefully someone has been through this exact problem before. You can see that they're doing the same thing. The date is giving them an N on OS X, but not on Linux. And someone has very helpfully given the solution, which is to install the core utils, and then you get gdate, which will give you that functionality. Let's test that. I've got core utils installed, so let's go do gdate, and then there we go. That's a nice, much longer date there compared to, give you the date. It's got the 3 additional decimal places of the milliseconds. So we can update our script here to be gdate rather than date. Save that, clear, source the hooks, and then we can do echo the test. There we go. Echoing test took 23 milliseconds to begin with, then 6, then 6. We could do a sleep of 1 and echo foo. That was 1 second and 20 milliseconds to echo that. That sounds about right. Okay, so as a final thing, rather than just echoing it and busying up my terminal, I think instead we should be outputting this to a file. So I'm just going to write milliseconds there as well. I'm going to do a new file. We'll say command.log is going to be the name of the file. We will source the hooks, and then we can start doing some commands. Let's say test, foo, let's do that sleep again. Let's do sleep. Can you do decimal places on this? Apparently you can. And then finally echo awesome. Clear that. Let's back the command log, and then there we can see, first off we sourced, that took 6 milliseconds, and then test 7, 6, 1020, some more millisecond values. So this is how we could start building up our own log of timings of different CLI commands. So there we have it. That's how we can write event handlers in fish functions pretty easily and get some pretty useful results out. Hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next one.